All right, welcome everybody to the Jim Acosta Show. It is Wednesday, and the bungling of Trump's big, beautiful blunder is getting bigger. It's a bigly problem for Donald Trump. As you can see with me today, Don Lemon, the great Don Lemon, is here. Don, I don't know if you're seeing this or following this. I know you had your run-in with Elon Musk, but Elon Musk has been going off on this big, beautiful bill, as Trump likes to call it, which is just such a bad name for it right now because it's just getting worse and worse for him. And, today he tweeted, call your senator, call your congressman. Bankrupting America is not okay. Kill the bill. Does Elon Musk have Trump derangement syndrome? When you and I get accused of
TDS all the time. It's a bad breakup, isn't it?
It is.
It's a bad breakup. And Mike Johnson saying, hey, I texted, Elon Musk last night. He didn't call me back. It was kind of like a, hey, you up? It's so
this is
bad.
Like Mean Girls on steroids. This is not good.
As you know better than I, because you are the chief White House correspondent and a very good one at that. When the president has to go down to the Hill and get people on board, it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good. It means that it's failing. This big beautiful bill is I think it's a bust. You can call it the bombshell bust bill. I don't know what it is, but I think they're going to have trouble getting it through, considering everything that's happening. And I was laughing on my show yesterday, Jim, because Marjorie Taylor Greene said, I didn't know the AI stuff was in there. Right?
I was going to bring that up. Yes.
And then she says, I didn't see what happened on page 200 and something. I was like, you couldn't even get to page 200 and something to view the damn bill. Like,
wait, do we think Marjorie Taylor Greene reads bills? Come on. I don't
know.
think
Donald Trump neither. Do you think he's read that bill?
He doesn't even read his own tweets. They put his tweets out. And speaking of tweets, has he even tweeted about Elon Musk going after him? I mean, I sort of feel like it's been radio silence from him. And he must be so pissed right now that Elon Musk has done this to him. Yeah, he must be so pissed.
I don't think he's tweeted about him. He hasn't tweeted about him in a month. He hasn't really spoken about it until Elon Musk, was it on Friday, I believe, went back to the Oval Office and he, left his position at Doge. But Donald Trump has basically just been silent about Elon Musk for maybe a month or two, since Elon Musk, went back to, I guess, take over his company or work at his company, which is really in jeopardy, right? Not in jeopardy, but it's having some tough time.
Well, and it's great that you make that point, because I've been thinking this. Maybe Elon Musk has a crisis counselor PR firm telling him, we need you to go after Trump. We need you to go after the big, beautiful bill. We need to do anything that you can to help rescue this company right now.
You think
and put some distance between yourself and Donald Trump. I don't know. I would love to know the answer to that question. Is that what Elon Musk is up to? It sure seems like he's trying to do something to rescue this company right now.
Jim, great minds. Because I said, wait a minute, is Elon Musk becoming woke again? Or woke now? Because, electric cars, green energy or whatever, like Elon Musk was kind of woke. He was a Democrat back in the day. And I said, is he becoming woke now? Is this?
Yeah. Don just froze on me. There he is. We were talking about Elon Musk and then Substack blew up. I think he did it.
I think it's a platform, because I had full bars. I don't know what's going on, but I
don't either.
Think maybe it's in my
wow. Well, the Substack machine, as I like to say, sometimes the little hamster in the wheel just stops spinning, and the whole thing grinds to a halt. But no, we were just talking about this big, beautiful bill, and I know you got to get going soon, so we should talk about this other thing, which is what is going on with Karine Jean-Pierre, the former White House press secretary. She said she's got a book out. She said she's going independent. She's leaving the Democratic Party. I mean, she was the press secretary like 5 months ago.
Well, and there are a lot of people who are speaking out who worked with her in the White House. Yeah. And look, Karine Jean-Pierre. I know Karine Jean-Pierre. She's a nice enough lady, but everyone around, but not everyone. A lot of the folks who are commenting on these stories in Politico and other places are saying that they believe this is the most blatant, in-your-face grift, to be honest, that they have seen in modern political history. I don't know if that is true. I don't know enough about it, but it's probably a good way to sell a book.
Yeah. No, I don't know either. But I mean, to me, this is like what you expect to see the Trump people do is write these kinds of books. It's very Trumpian. And, I've known Karine over the years, and I've always had good relations with her. She's always been very nice. I know that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. This is DC. But to me, this is an issue inside the Democratic Party, it seems to me right now. Like they cannot hang on to the folks that they have, and everybody's just sort of going in a lot of different directions, and nobody seems to know what the best path forward is for the party. And I was talking to a senior Biden aide last night in DC, who was saying that Biden is loving all the criticism he's getting these days. He's never felt better. He goes into places and people are applauding. It's all this criticism is backfiring on him. So I don't know if Karine is making a good move here, honestly.
Yeah, and I don't know what the move is, and I don't
Yeah.
like to judge things as you know, Jim,
Yeah.
because you never know what's
You
true
never
and
know.
what's not, and people write all kinds of things. And look, up on our tenure at CNN and our exits, people wrote a lot of things about me. At least I know that were not true, and
Yeah.
I mean patently false, just made up things.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how what Karine Jean-Pierre, what her response is going to be, what's true and what's not. But if this reporting is true, it's I'll just say that it's interesting. I
Yeah.
do like that the former president is enjoying his life. I do like that it's backfiring. And I just wonder why there's so much focus on him and not
Exactly.
on the craziness that is at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now.
Yeah, and this aide I was talking to last night was saying, for Christ's sake, Donald Trump over the weekend is putting out this conspiracy theory that Biden was executed in 2020 or whatever it was, or 2021 or 2024.
Some
I don't know what it was.
robot shit.
It was replaced by a clone robot or some shit. If you're the president, I mean, I don't care if Joe Biden would stumble and stammer and get words wrong and things like that. Who gives a shit if the current president of the United States is peddling crazy ass conspiracy theories?
Yeah. Here's what I say, Jim. We both know Joe Biden.
Yeah.
You seen him much more and been up close and personal with him much more than I have. Joe Biden was an old man. We know that. We know Joe Biden wasn't the Joe Biden that he was when he was 70, when he was 60, when he was 50, when he was 40. It's going to happen to all of us if we're lucky enough to get there. Even now, I can't recall things. Like I'm like, what's that guy's name? Acosta, Jim, that guy. You know what I'm saying? And so
I do that.
It happens to everybody. But I will say, I didn't like to give my political opinions or any sort of leanings when I worked in mainstream media. But this last time I wanted Kamala Harris to win, not because I was enamored with Kamala Harris, but because I thought that the Democratic Party, she was the only one who believed in democracy. So I will say that I believe that a Joe Biden ran the country, even if he was in cognitive decline or whatever mental state that he was in, a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump is running this country. And I think we need to be focused on that because Joe Biden is in the past. He is retired, and he left Donald Trump with a good economy, and that Donald Trump fucked up. And he left them after he pulled our economy back off the brink from the first time Donald Trump was in office.
Exactly. That's right. And I mean, and just today you have the Department of Education going after Columbia University, trying to say it doesn't meet its accreditation status and so on. And the way Trump has tried to go on this campaign of revenge and retribution, in this sort of undemocratic strongman wannabe fashion, that is the story. That's the story that we should be focusing on right now. The American people, journalists, folks like Don and I, that's the story. Whether Biden did this or that, he's gone. He's not the president anymore.
Right. And I do think that the Democrats, they need to have a postmortem. They need to figure out where the party is going. I spoke, Mike Nellis, right? I spoke with Mike Nellis, who was a former senior advisor to the Kamala Harris campaign and raised money for.
I'm trying to get him on.
Yeah, and he talked about. I had him on today. He's a great guy. You should have him on. It's up on the Substack right now. And he talked about the way forward for Democrats. We talked about Pete Buttigieg, whether America is ready for a gay president. We talked about the trans issue, and he has some very interesting insight and perspective on where Democrats need to go. And I think he's pretty much on the mark. We disagreed on some things.
Yeah.
But I like people that I can disagree with and still, respect.
Yeah.
He's not a MAGA person that you go, wait a minute, what you're saying is not even related anywhere to reality.
No, you have to be in the real world for me to want to have a conversation with you. I mean, that's just the way I do it. And I know, Don, you have to run, but you mentioned Pete Buttigieg. I mean, my feeling is that he could be president and that he could be very successful running for president. And this notion that he can't be successful, to me, is wrong. I think that's a misreading of of where we are as a country right now. I think Trump could so seriously screw things up, and he's in the process of fucking those things up right now, that the table might be set for Pete Buttigieg. You just don't know. We saw this back in 2008 with Barack Obama. People said, no, there's no way he's going to beat Hillary Clinton. And
okay, so we agree on that. Oh, somewhat. I agree that Pete Buttigieg is qualified and would be a great president of the United States. The only thing that I disagree with you and with Mike on is that this is different from 2008. Jim, you lived it. You saw how our political climate, how the rules changed for politics, how anything became that nothing mattered.
Right.
That you could say, I'm going to grab a woman by the pee and all of that and still become president of the United States.
Yeah.
In 2008, when Barack Obama ran, you couldn't do that. That was we didn't play by those rules.
Correct.
I think
that's
Trump
true.
Changed the game. So now, I think about Pete Buttigieg. Great, if he runs, great. I think that he would be a great president if he wins. But I think people think about what happened, how they demonized and otherized trans people and members of the LGBTQ community in 2024 in that election. And I think that is a legitimate concern for, I hear Democrats, progressive people really far to the left saying, I love Pete. I just don't know if it's time yet. And people said that about Barack Obama. So I say if Pete wants to run, let him run.
Yeah.
But I do understand the concerns and the hesitation from some folks.
Well, I don't want to hold you up, and maybe I'll let you have the last word there. My thing is that I believe that this country is ready to make change in all sorts of ways. And I agree with you that he's so normalized cruelty and hatred and nastiness in this country. I do worry about what a Pete Buttigieg candidacy would be up against, but you got to go for it. You got to try. When you're in that moment where you might have the table set for you, I think you have to do it, no matter what the pundits say, what the climate or environment might be like. I don't know. To be determined. I guess, but yeah.
And to be continued. So next time, maybe we shouldn't talk about Elon Musk, because then we won't lose connectivity.
That's true. All right, we won't. Next time we'll talk about other things. All right, good to see you, Don.
Good to see you. Thank you, Jim Acosta. See you later, buddy.
Thank you, bud. All right, thank you so much. Oh, we got gypped there because Elon Musk, I think, tried to screw us over there, but I'm kidding a little bit, but maybe not. That's the great Don Lemon. Well, as you can see, Don and I were just getting going there, because we were so rudely interrupted at one point. I think it might have been Elon Musk, but I have no idea. And I say that partly in jest. But I do think it's interesting. And in a few minutes from now, I'm going to be talking with Miles Taylor. Miles was at the town hall that I had in D.C. the other night. That was on Monday night here in Washington. And Miles was there. We gave Miles an award for defending freedom. And we gave other awards out to January 6th police officers, folks like Harry Dunn, Mike Fanone, Daniel Hodges, Akalina Ganell, Tara Setmeyer. She got one for defending women, and Aaron Parnas for defending Gen Z. But Miles has been on my mind for some time. I'm going to bring him in just a few moments here, because it was earlier this year when Trump, he gets the press in the Oval Office. He doesn't want the press asking the hard questions anymore. Brings them in the Oval Office, and they read out these executive orders. They read out these ridiculous executive orders. I mean, I wrote about this in my Substack the other day. Why are they reading the executive orders to him out loud in the Oval Office like he has not read them? It's almost like they're reading him his last will and testament. He's got to sign off on this. I mean, it's just so weird. And I mean, can't they just read this stuff behind closed doors? It has to be done in like this reality TV show fashion. And I guess that's the point. But the day that he read the executive order saying that the Department of Justice is going to go after Chris Krebs and Miles Taylor, to me, there have been some very un-American moments since the beginning of this new administration, the pardoning of the January 6th criminals being, I guess, top of the list. I would say they're right at the top of the list. The executive order instructing the Justice Department to go after Miles and Chris Krebs, to me, was one of the most un-American things I had ever seen in my lifetime. And it needs to be roundly denounced. It's disappointing to me that we did not see many Republicans up on Capitol Hill and around Washington to immediately denounce that. You cannot have the President of the United States announcing an executive order where he is saying that we're going to have the Department of Justice go after people. Let me see if I can start to bring in Miles Taylor now, because we need to have this discussion. Miles just announced that he is calling for basically an IG investigation, independent inspector general investigation of what is going on inside the Department of Homeland Security, inside the Department of Justice. He's requesting a review of whether these executive orders violate the law, the constitutional rights, and other safeguards meant to protect American citizens. And there's Miles right there. Hey, Miles, how you doing?
Jim, I thought I'd give you a live shot,
I love it. This is great.
We just, we got to spice it up. We got to take the viewers on a tour of Washington's back streets.
I love it. I know exactly where you are right now. I recognize that street. I think I know from where you came, but we won't mention any names right now.
Bad memories, all of everything in between. So,
you're by Union Station. We'll leave it at that. But Miles, I'm so glad that you're doing this. I'm so glad that you have come out and said you're pushing back on Donald Trump's un-American behavior. You're calling on these federal watchdogs to investigate the Trump administration for his executive order going after you. You said in your Substack writing about this, you said this is not a partisan request, it's a constitutional one. Tell us what you meant by that.
Well, look, at the end of the day, Jim, being targeted by an investigative executive order is a totally different thing than, Donald Trump saying something mean about you on Truth Social, which he's done, saying something mean about you on Twitter, which he's done, saying something mean in a press release. He's done all those things to us. This is different. This is the use of the investigative organs of the government to try to disrupt our lives. And make no mistake, those powers are extraordinary. It gives the president and his lieutenants the ability, potentially, hypothetically, to dig into every aspect of our lives. And so, that's why I say at the end of the day, this is not something that we treat as, as a political act. We think it's very important constitutionally to have the inspector generals of these departments, whose job it is to watch over the shoulder of the investigators to see if they are actually carrying out this order, which we believe to be totally politically motivated on his part because of me speaking out against him. And, you can agree or disagree with me about Donald Trump. You can love or hate what I said about Donald Trump, but it was First Amendment protected speech. And
absolutely.
So, now we believe these investigators are fundamentally violating our constitutional rights by engaging in this review. And as a first step, we think that's what the inspector generals are there to do, is to look into that and to shine a light.
And Miles, when the executive order came out, I guess you and I haven't really spoken about this together publicly, like in this kind of a fashion, but I know you were at the town hall the other night. I'm tremendously grateful for that. I thought your words were powerful. People in the audience were moved by them. I just thought it was, your message about how we can't stay quiet. We can't be anonymous in this time right now. We have to put ourselves out there. I guess I do want to ask you about that. Well, let's start there. Why did you want to deliver that message?
Well, it's of course, as I had said that night, Jim, ironic coming from me, to say that, anonymity is a threat to democracy. I, of course, had initially criticized the president as anonymous, but there was a reason for that. I did that because it was a device I knew that would get attention. That may sound crass. It would be crass if the object was to get myself attention because I was in a movie or selling a product. But the message was that the president of the United States was viewed by his own lieutenants as fundamentally unfit for office, so much so that they had real conversations about whether they might have to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him. That, in my mind, is not the type of thing that a bunch of unelected bureaucrats should be talking about behind the scenes in a smoke-filled room and not sharing with the American people. If they have that view, then damn it, it's their job to go tell the voters, who are the ones who are responsible for deciding whether to fire or rehire a president. And so I felt like it was very important to get that message out there. But in the course of that, Jim, I realized that, it brought attention to the message, but I couldn't stay behind a mask forever because that sent a different message. It sent a message that we can have these opinions and not attach our names to them, and everything will be okay. And someone else will just solve it for us. Someone will ride in on the white horse. And that wasn't the case. And as we got closer to the 2020 election, no one was riding in on the white horse. And a lot of these cabinet members who'd been fired or left the administration that you and I both know had these opinions were not coming out and sharing them. And so I felt like a different message needed to be sent, that we shouldn't hide behind those words, hide behind anonymity rather, and we should own our words. And now my worry is that as the president's engaged in a truly historic and sweeping government-wide, whole of government effort to exact revenge against his enemies, that it is collective silence within the Republican Party, within the federal government, within corporate America, that will enable him to carry it out. And so that to me is a bigger threat to free speech than Donald Trump himself. It is us self-censoring and being anonymous. And I really, that's one of the reasons I'm out there right now talking about this situation, is to tell people, look, it is hard. It's very hard to come forward and speak about these things because you invite a lot of turmoil into your life. But the alternative is much worse because you invite a lot of fear into the rest of your life if you don't step up and do the right thing.
No, there's no question about it. And my hat is off to you for doing that. And by the way, you just got into a car. It's 87 degrees in Washington. If you have to turn that car on and turn the AC on, you go right ahead.
The AC is on. And I will say, for anyone out there who says, oh, dang, why is he in a Tesla? I bought this 7 years ago before Elon went crazy. Although it seems like Elon's trying to uncrazy himself. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It's interesting that you brought that up. If you go around DC these days, just about every Tesla has like F Elon on it, or I bought this before Elon went crazy and so on. So don't worry about that. That's okay. Well, let's talk about Elon in a second, but I did want to ask you, when Trump put out that executive order, that very un-American executive order going after you, which is obviously, it was designed to send the message to other future Miles Taylors, don't do this. Other future Chris Krebs, don't do this. Don't cross me. I'll come after you. Did you have any heads up whatsoever? Or was it one of those things where it was like, this is in the news. People are texting me. It's happening right now.
Yeah, none whatsoever. I mean, we suspected, Jim, my wife and I, that somewhere along the line he would come after us. And, I've now been going on 7 years of warning that this guy, if reelected, would be engaged in a really historic campaign of retribution. And he's done that to a T. So I suspected at some point we'd be on some executive order. What I did not expect is so quickly in the administration, him to escalate these attacks to directly ordering federal investigations into named individuals. I mean, legal scholars tell me this is the first time with me and Chris Krebs in American history, 249 years, that a president by executive order has opened an investigation into a named critic for First Amendment protected speech. That's never happened in this country. And so it was a gut punch. I mean, my wife and I were both just getting home. She was getting home with the baby. I was getting home with the dog. And we were in the driveway and someone texted and said, you need to turn on the news. And we watched it happen. And we went to our kitchen table afterwards and Hannah looked at me and, her first question was, do you think we're going to lose the House? Because we've only just put the pieces back together in our life after speaking out against Trump in 2020. We know we don't have the resources to go defend against this type of full frontal assault. And, I hate to say it, but I had to, respond to her and say, I don't know. And we need to figure out how we're going to do this. Now, I'm lucky, Jim, because organizations came forward to offer support. An incredible organization that I can't say enough about, Whistleblower Aid, helped us create a legal defense fund. We're immensely grateful. Folks that are your viewers, other folks have helped us with that. It's endpresidentialrevenge.org, END, endpresidentialrevenge.org. It's a nonprofit. They're supporting not just us, but other people who are being targeted by the White House for their public service. And I mean, we broke down into tears when they offered to go launch that defense fund because we didn't know if we were going to have to sell the house to pay for our defense. My fear, though, is what if you're the 30th person on the list or the 100th person or the 1,000th person to receive an investigative, order with Trump's signature at the bottom? Are you going to have that network? Are you going to be able to come on Jim Acosta's show and talk about it? And, that's why we feel like we have to draw a line. I mean, I'll tell you, every fiber of my being wanted to just stay private after this happened. We just did not want to go back into the public limelight. Like I said, we're growing our family. We wanted to go back to private business and just put our lives back together. But after a lot of conversations, after many weeks, and that there's a reason Hannah and I weren't on here talking to you the day after this happened, because we spent weeks figuring out, do we really think we should go back out there and punch back? And ultimately our conclusion is, one, this is wrong, so we have to. And two, they are going to do this to so many more people if we don't come out and show how wrong this is and try to lay down a marker and get the system to prevent this from going forward. So that's what we're setting out to do.
Yeah, and I think Trump, I often say he's his own worst enemy. For all of his perceived enemies, he's his own worst enemy. And he is sowing the seeds of his own destruction, I believe, political destruction, when he does things like go after you, Miles Taylor, when he goes after people like Chris Krebs. Quite frankly, when he tried to take my press pass and go after journalists, people like the Associated Press, because it stiffens the spine of the American people. And I think it's just wonderful that folks have come out of the woodwork to help you, that there is this effort, endpresidentialrevenge.org. That to me gives me hope. But the question that I have for you, Miles, is, what can be done? Because it seems to me we're going to need a lot of legal defense funds over the next few years. And they're going after Columbia University today, trying to, get rid of their accreditation. This is going to be a long, hard slog, it seems to me.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I would say is, Jim, you mentioning the story of your press pass is so resonant. Mm-hmm. You know this, but your viewers don't, which is that the day that happened to you, I will never forget. I was sitting at Trump Hotel with a group of cabinet secretaries. I was still in the first Trump administration. And I'll never forget a very senior person in the White House coming into the Trump Hotel and walking over to the group of us and just gloating so gleefully that they had just revoked your press pass. And I remember the laughter, the high-fiving. It's before maybe you even knew it had happened, or you had just maybe found out it had happened. And I still remember every detail about that scene because it was so sickening, the joy with which they were attacking so directly, symbolically, and actually the First Amendment. Is a reporter holding Trump's feet to the fire at the White House, being booted from the White House. And now we've seen in a second term, that episode has become so illustrative of their approach to the free press. And those warning signs were there. And I remember being disgusted by that. But I mentioned that, Jim, because it also answers your question, which is, how do we start pushing back against that? You are the example of that. You could have been a reporter who had the press pass revoked, got beaten down by the Trump White House, and sort of tail between your legs, just curbed your reporting, stopped talking about it. And there were pressures, I'm sure, on you to, hey, Jim, dial it back a little bit. I know he's doing outlandish things, but maybe if you just focus a little less on the violation of democratic norms, you won't be in this situation again. Jim Acosta did not think that was acceptable. I think you have demonstrated extraordinary professional and personal courage all throughout your career. That. But you don't have to be Jim Acosta. You can be the small business owner who says, no, I'm not going to let people cancel me because I stood up for the thing that was right. I'll give you an example of how this happened recently. I'm not going to call the person out at all. They're trying to protect their family, but I'm doing an event in a major city in a couple of weeks to help try to raise for this legal defense fund. And a catering company was hired to help cater for the event, very friendly group of people. And they had to back out the other day. And they backed out because they found out what the event was for. Not that they don't support our efforts to shine a light on attacks on free speech, but they are worried that their employees who are immigrants will be targeted by the Trump administration if they cater an event that I'm at. This is the level of social fear we are seeing. So don't think for a second everyday Americans can't make that decision, because we will be faced with those decisions about whether to stand up or not. And it makes all the difference in the world to make that choice. It is hard, but there's also strength in numbers in speaking out. And that's ultimately how we came full circle, my wife and I, in deciding whether to go back out there against this. Is it really takes people breaking the seal. And the last thing I'll say on that front is in 2020, when I was seeing that a lot of people weren't coming forward, I was going to coffees privately with a lot of these senior officials that ended up coming and speaking their minds about the president, former cabinet members, and then people who weren't household names and that sort of thing. And I was having coffees with them, and everyone's like, yeah, we share your view, but this guy's going to blow up our lives if we do it. And I realized what it was going to take was a bunch of us deciding, okay, let's all come out at the same time. And that spreads out the attack surface in a sense. And that helped, that worked. And that works whether it's at the national level or at the local level. And it's how people need to think about this moment that we are going into as a country.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how disappointed I have been. And first of all, thank you for all the very kind words. It's very nice. I mean, I can just say humanly, personally, there was just no way I could personally say, I'm just going to take this on the chin and just absorb this. I thought it was going to be sending the wrong message. I thought, my God, what kind of example are we setting for kids out there and so on? And to me, it gets back to what's happening right now. It just encourages the bad behavior. If you go along with it, if you take it, if you absorb it and say, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, you are encouraging the behavior. And I wonder, Miles, what your take is on law firms, universities, media organizations, taking it on the chin, bending the knee, bowing down. To me, it makes what you're going through even more difficult.
Well, it also shows that they have made a choice to agree with the president, whether they realize it or not. Donald Trump has accused people like me and Chris Krebs of treason for speaking out against him. That is a crime punishable by death in the United States. And even if he thinks that that's a joke, his supporters don't think it's a joke.
Right.
The people that send us messages saying they're going to kill me in the firing squad, that send graphic, violent things about my wife, that talk about my daughter or my nieces and nephews, they don't think he's joking when he says treason. And that's incredibly alarming. But when those institutions cower, they are effectively agreeing with him that dissent is treasonous because they have chosen to accept the fact that if they dissent, they will be treated like traitors. And that perpetuates the revenge. It makes it that much easier. And I take a different view. And it's why, Jim, you inspired me in part to get on this platform this week. And it's why I called my Substack Treason, because I think the opposite. I don't think that dissent is treasonous, and certainly not criticizing a president. And there's a long, proud tradition in this country of viewing it the opposite way. And I always go back to this Teddy Roosevelt quote is, he said that not only is it not treasonous to criticize a president, it's treasonous not to criticize a president and to say that criticism, should not be done. That is servile. And, the truth should be spoken always about the president of the United States, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. And so, look, I would say this: if free speech is treasonous, then I hope they build bigger prisons, because I want to see people in this country rise up and show that they're not afraid to be called traitors. Yeah. And it takes that sort of conviction and feeling of defiance to buck yourself up into the place you need to be. And just remember, we're only a few months into this administration. Yes. I don't want to be cynical about this, but this is going to get worse before it gets better. It will require everyday Americans to start rising up. I mean, it's genuinely going to require that. And that, I think, is the only thing that has started to curb some of the excesses of this administration.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. And for folks out there who are saying, oh gosh, we can't have people like Miles criticizing Trump. I mean, first of all, you come from a Republican background, but second of all, going back to the individual you mentioned at the top of this interview, I mean, you can accuse Elon Musk now, I guess, of having Trump derangement syndrome. He's out there on Twitter going after the big, beautiful bill. He's talking about how it's going to explode the deficit and so on, kill the bill and so on. And it's remarkable to me how, hypocritical they are in all of this. And the question that I have, Miles, is you've got to think that there are other Miles Taylors inside the White House, inside the administration, as we speak, waiting. They're going through the struggle that you went through. They're going through the struggle that I went through. And they're saying, what do I do? How do I speak out? How do I reveal what's going on? How can I be the whistleblower? And what's your message to them? Because you know those guys exist, those ladies exist. As we speak, there are people who are seeing god awful things and want to speak out.
I mean, look, I will just be very blunt about the internal struggle that I went through. You think that it's better to stay in obscurity and to stay comfortable. But believe me, on the back end of this, if you saw wrongdoing and did nothing, you will be uncomfortable in your own skin for the rest of your life. And you will struggle, and you may not even be able to name it, but you will have this unnamed thing haunting you for the rest of your life. You will be in therapy about it without knowing. You will get, you'll be addicted to pills or alcohol. It will consume you. And that's not some prophetic warning. You go look at the whole history of people who've talked about sitting on allegations of wrongdoing when they knew they shouldn't have done it and how much it tortured them for the rest of their lives. And I knew that that's what would happen. And I didn't want to hate myself for the rest of my life. And I thought, I'll take all of the consequences. I would rather take the ultimate consequence and be taken down by one of these vigilante MAGA people in the street, God forbid, than live the rest of my life knowing I saw wrongdoing and did nothing. And that's the first thing I would say. But the second thing I would say is it won't destroy your life. It will free you. I've never felt more freed in my entire life. No one can get leverage over me ever, 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 ever. I feel the most freed I've ever been in my entire life. And that doesn't just mean professionally on some grand scale that I'll stand up to the president of the United States. It means if someone's, an asshole to my wife at the coffee shop and says something inappropriate, I'm not afraid to just say, hey, that was wrong. I mean, we all live every day with these little micro social fears. And when you stand up in the face of wrongdoing, it frees you from all of that for the rest of your life. And so that's what I would tell those people. But the third thing is there are organizations out there for people who want to speak out, and they exist. I mentioned the organization helping us at the endpresidentialrevenge.org. There's groups like Government Accountability Project. Norm Eisen runs an extraordinary group, States Democracy. There's a growing constellation of these remarkable democracy defenders who are helping people, whether they're in government, outside of government, current officials, former officials, people in the business world, people at law firms, to come forward and do the right thing. And that's hard and that's scary because the normal mechanisms for blowing the whistle have been attacked and assailed, and the president is trying to make it as hard as possible to go out there and dissent. But there is pushback, and that gives me a lot of hope, is to see folks. And I saw a number of them the other night at the town hall you pulled together, Jim. I mean, it was just like a room packed full of brave people. Folks it's taken a little bit longer than we'd hope, but folks are really stepping up. And that's remarkable. And look, I will just say personally, from the bottom of my heart, it has blown us away just the past few days. The outpouring of support that we have seen. We didn't know if it was going to be there. I did not know yesterday if I was going to say these things and it was going to fall on deaf ears and go drive back home to Hannah and say, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought, or if I was going to hear from people around this country who had our backs. And it was the latter. And, I'm not an emotional guy, but I called my wife on the drive home from DC yesterday. And, I just said, I think I got a little bit more hope than I had on Monday.
Well, I mean, not to get all Star Wars and everybody, but rebellions were built on hope, I thought, is the one of the lines from one of those movies. But Miles, listen, you're giving everybody hope and taking the stand that you're taking right now, speaking truth to power. It's exactly what we need across this country right now. And little by little, you're right, it's happening slowly, but little by little, step by step, people are waking up to the reality of what we're all facing right now. And as we saw the other night at the town hall, and people were very much moved by the words that you spoke there, that support is coming together. This movement it's coalescing. It's coming together in a way that I think is going to blow you away. It's going to blow me away. And I think the American people are going to be strengthened by it in the long run. I mean, there's that old saying about being stronger in the broken places, and we're pretty broken right now as a country. I do have hope that we're going to get to this place that you and I have been talking about for some time. And you have to have hope. You have to have hope that we're better than this. That to me is what it is at the end of the day.
And I've got to say, Jim, there's something about the new media ecosystem that we're in that allows everyday Americans to actually be in this fight. I mean, we're used to 20 years ago, someone asked, well, how can I help? And it's like, you can show up at a rally and people are like, I don't feel like I am able to contribute. I will tell you point blank right now, without any humiliation, I don't pretend to have endless financial resources. I am able to fight back because people have crowdsourced my defense. Literally, people I've never met in my life
Amazing.
are the reason I'm able to go take these legal actions against the Trump administration. That's how you can help. When this happens to other people, you can literally be the one to help them fight back. And so, people that I'll probably never meet in my life have effectively saved my family and are behind us. That is cool. That is remarkable. That gives me a lot of hope, is that people can actually go be in this fight right now. And I'm inspired by that. So I appreciate everything you're doing on this front, Jim. And, genuinely, I think that I think it's starting to turn the tide. So, just super grateful for your moral leadership in these times.
And I'm grateful for yours, Miles. I'll let you go, but really, I just want to say once again how grateful I am to you for coming to the town hall the other night, and spreading your message and what you continue to do every day. I firmly believe that this decision that you are making to take this stand, you are going to feel good about this. It's hard as shit at times, but you're going to feel good about this the rest of your life. And your daughter, your just beautiful daughter that I met the other night, she's going to be so proud of her dad. And that's what, I think that's going to be something that you're going to feel very good about for years and years to come, man. And she's going to say in years from now, she's going to say, I don't even remember any of this stuff, but I'm so glad you did it, Dad. So I'm proud of you.
Means a ton, Jim. Thank you.
All right.
I seriously appreciate it. And thanks to all your viewers.
All right. Thanks, Miles. Appreciate it. Good to see you, man. Peace to you. And drive safely, please, in that Tesla that you got there. I can't say enough about Miles. He's just such a great guy. And I understand, listen, when I covered the White House during the first Trump administration, I would talk to Trump people from time to time, and they would tell me how batshit crazy it was behind the scenes. They always wanted to be quoted anonymously. They did not want to say on the record what they thought was going on. And this is right up until January 6, 2021. I was hearing from Trump officials, Trump advisors, Trump friends, Trump attorneys. They were all saying privately what Miles is now saying publicly, which is that this man, the guy who is now the president of the United States, cannot hack it. He cannot do this job. He can't do it because he's not built the way that you need to be the president of the United States. You have to be able to accept criticism. It's part of the job. You have to be able to take hits. It's part of the job. And Donald Trump is just not built that way. And so when somebody comes out and speaks publicly like Miles and says what needs to be said and says what so many officials and aides and advisors won't say publicly because they feel like they can't do it. They lack the guts to do it. They feel like they're in some kind of a bind or situation where they can't do it. Miles is doing publicly and in a brave and courageous way what so many of them, let's just face it, who are gutless wonders, can't have the balls to say it out loud. And that's why I'm appreciative of Miles and what he does and what he said. And there have been others over the years who have done similar things as Miles. I think of Stephanie Grisham from time to time. She does not like to speak publicly that much anymore, but she was very out in front with her criticism of Trump. She recognized the danger. She spoke out publicly, and we need people like Miles. We need people like Stephanie to continue to do that. Olivia Troye. Obviously, my friend Olivia Troye, who was at the town hall the other night, she worked for Mike Pence. She has spoken publicly. And we need those kinds of folks. That's why I asked that question at the end of that interview there. What would Miles's message be to the current Miles Taylors? Because I can guarantee, I can bet good money. I can bet good money that there are other Miles Taylors right now, as we speak, who are freaked out about what they're witnessing inside the Trump administration, because there's no question about it. What's happening this time around is even more batshit crazy than what it was the last time around. So you have to have the Miles Taylors of the world. And so what everybody's doing right now to uplift and support him, I want to encourage all of my subscribers to subscribe to Miles. And you can do that right here on Substack, so you can continue to follow what he is going through. I want to get to my buddy Adrian Carrasquilo. He is doing excellent work over at the Bulwark right now and is writing about, I mean, really what we've seen take place in the immigration realm, which is just absolute madness, the way that Latinos have been targeted in this country. Let's just face it, they've been absolutely 100% targeted in this country. Adrian's been following this with his reporting. Adrian, great to see you, buddy.
How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Thank you so much for doing this. I was just talking to Miles Taylor about this, and I know you've been doing a lot of immigration reporting, and I have to think that you're already talking to administration officials or people behind the scenes who are saying, you know what, this is a little bit screwed up what we're seeing unfold before our eyes. This mass deportation operation that Trump has been unleashing on the country. And you wrote about some of this in the Bulwark just recently. You wrote a piece called, and I want to make sure everybody reads Adrian's piece. It's called "Love in the Time of Deportation." And it starts off this way. When Diego went to court in Tennessee for his annual ICE check-in on February 12th, he didn't expect anything different from past years. Neither did his wife, Emily, a U.S. citizen who went with him. They weren't planning on going anywhere, but this time Diego was detained. He was shipped off to an ICE detention center. Emily, his wife, had a huge decision to make. This is according to Adrian: uproot her entire life or be separated from her husband. If she chose to self-deport with her 2.5-year-old son, who is also an American citizen, then just like that, their lives in the U.S. would be over. She plans on leaving the country in June. Adrian, so many families are going through these kinds of situations right now, aren't they?
I've been sort of like obsessed with the concept of self-deportation, the idea that this mass deportation regime could then extend to U.S. citizens having their lives overturned by what's going on, because the administration, as you and I both know, said they were going to go get criminals and gangbangers. And what they've been doing is they've been going after people who've been here, paying their taxes, have been here for 10, 20 years. And so it took a while because I wanted to track down people who'd be willing to tell their story. You know, we kept their identities anonymous in the story. And you know what hit me is, and I know you've done this for a long time, you and I both have, Jim, and it hit me when she said, you were just talking with Miles, I was listening about the Tesla, right? She said, we just bought a Honda Prologue electric vehicle. Like, they weren't planning on going anywhere, and 5 months ago, and now here they're confronted with her choice being, and I asked her, how difficult is this for you? And she said, well, it's not difficult because my choices are stay here or go be with my family. And she was unwilling to separate her family. And so now she's going to Colombia in June.
And I mean, and so many families are faced with this heartbreaking choice. I mean, who wants to live in a different country than their wife or their husband, or have their child separated from the kid's parent? And yet we're seeing so much of that take place right now. There was the case recently in the last few weeks of a little kid from Honduras who was a U.S. citizen, left with his mother. We're seeing this in case after case after case. But this is what Tom Homan said at the beginning of the administration, that we'll deport whole families, even if some of the people in the family have U.S. citizenship. It's unreal.
They said there would be collateral damage, quote, as if that's something that you can use about people. I covered immigration 10 years ago, and I didn't think I wanted to cover it again, because you get into this place where you have to keep raising the stakes of how difficult a story is and how much it pulls on the heartstrings for people to get to pay attention. But what I found important about this year is that this is the central story, that as we're seeing, their overreach on immigration then leads to constitutional overreach, right? Where they're doing things that are illegal, everything from birthright citizenship orders to trying to arrest the Newark mayor, trying to sort of rough up members of Congress who want to do congressional oversight, which is a legal thing. And so that you start getting into what is going on here is, we've talked about this. We've seen this with the ICE members that are wearing masks. Why are you wearing masks?
Why are they wearing the masks? Why are they wearing the masks? Do we know?
Yeah, well, I've got something coming on that hopefully soon, but it's this constant thing that, and you and I have talked about this privately, but I've been really impressed and really proud of the work that you're doing. I think that so many of us in journalism, we look up to you because you've been around. You look great, but you've been around here for a while, and we respect.
I'm old. I mean, let's just fucking say it. I'm old.
You're a veteran, but in this time, and something that I've been excited about with the Bulwark is, when they're trumping up this BS charges about tattoos and using that as ways of arresting, disappearing them in El Salvador, I told my editor I want to write a piece titled "The Tattoos Are Bullshit," and they said okay. And just to be able to at this careers to say what's happening.
Well, the work you guys are doing over the Bulwark has been very important, and the work you've done in particular over there has been very important, and it needs to have a voice because, I mean, let's just get right into this. This whole notion that they were going to carry out mass deportations and that the only people who would be swept up in these mass deportations would be gangbangers and criminals. That was, I mean, there are lots of big lies out there, and maybe it's not as big of a lie as the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. But the idea that you were just going to be deporting gangbangers and criminals, I think that is sizing up to be the lie of the year. Yeah. That is one of the biggest lies that have been told about these mass deportations. They're just deporting families. They're grabbing people with brown skin, Spanish last names. They're waiting for them at the courthouse. They're snatching them up. In many cases, not giving them due process and getting them out of the country to make the country less brown. I'm going to say, you don't have to say it, but I'm saying it.
No. It's a bait and switch. And I think that, I remember at the beginning of the year, I wanted to put that Trump and Miller were making America white again. That's what they were trying to do. And, that's ultimately what they're trying to do. When you go from denying due process, when you go from people who are going for their court date, they are doing what they are supposed to be doing. How about the people that were paying taxes and then they're suddenly trying to get, all the tax information on these people? Aren't these the people who pay taxes every year? The people who are just keep their head down, they work, they start small business, they hire people. It's been outlandish. It's been crazy. I mean, one thing that I think they benefited from is that like a lot of people don't know the nitty gritty policy of immigration and what's going on. We all knew, and polls and focus groups have shown this. Americans wanted a tighter border. They wanted Biden to tighten.
Sure. Yeah.
And that has turned into all this interior enforcement, going into schools, pulling people when they're coming out of churches. And it's clearly, it's not just wrong. It's also, we're seeing in the polling, and we saw this beginning with the 100 days stuff, that Americans are saying, wait, I didn't sign up for this. And then on top of that, the economy is always number one, but immigration is this thing that's happening, including with Latino voters, where they're saying, oh no, this on top of the economy and the tariffs, I didn't vote for this. And I think they have a wake-up call coming next year.
Well, and you have a lot of Cuban Americans down in South Florida who vote Republican pretty much, every time there's an election in this country. You have a lot of Venezuelans who want to emulate the Cubans. And so they vote pretty much Republican by and large down in South Florida. And I think because of the revocation of temporary protective status for several of these groups, people are waking up and saying, oh, wait a minute, they're coming after my family. They're coming after my abuela. Like I thought I voted for Donald Trump and I was going to avoid this. No, because you voted for Donald Trump does not make you immune or your family immune to deportation. If you have a Spanish last name, if you have brown skin and you show up at your court date, you might be fucked. And that's just the way it is. And the other thing, Adrian, that has to be pointed out is I was at an event down in Texas last weekend talking to a Hispanic media group, and I had some people there tell me that people are not showing up for their court dates because of this. People are not showing up at school. Little kids are not going to school because they're worried they're going to have raids at the school. How does that make the country safer?
Mm-hmm. I spoke to a principal in Chicago. One of the first stories I did this year when I took up this new beat was just, what does ICE in schools look like? And she was talking to me about like teachers, that their weekly meeting turned into basically a therapy session because teachers were crying. One teacher had DACA. They don't know what's going to happen to them. The idea of, what do I do if ICE comes to the school? Of course, there's the regular administrators have, you're going to check in, we're going to go, we're going to talk to the principal, things like that. But literally, what do we do if ICE is in the school? Am I putting my body in front of an ICE agent to stop a child from being taken? This stuff where, and we already know the famous line, the cruelty is the point, but you're showing up at a school to try to get a father who's picking up his kid from school. I mean, it's just examples of this stuff that they're doing. And I don't know, I guess the Stephen Millers of the world think that this is like fun or that this is the right thing to do. But you're right. I mean, it ultimately goes down to when we just pare it down to its basic foundation. They do not want the country the way it is now. They do not want the country as brown as it is now. And a lot of people had those eye-opening, whether you were a Trump supporter, whether you were a South Florida, a Cuban, a Venezuelan, of thinking, And when we've talked to these voters in the past, oh no, they're not talking about me. When he says criminals going across the border, he's not talking about me. And so I am against that. And now they're finding out that they actually are talking about all of you.
Yeah, I'll just say it. That Stephen Miller is a racist asshole, and he is, and that's what's guiding the policy right now over at the White House. And I hate to use language like that, and I used to not use language like that in doing what I do, but I'm in a position now where I'm just going to say it, and that's how I feel about what he's been doing over there. I mean, you were also reporting, and we spoke about this just recently, that there was this idea that they were going to have a migrant Hunger Games, sort of a Latino Hunger Games in this country, to sort of like fight for your right to stay in this country and so on. Whatever happened to that? Has that gone away? They kind of backed away from it because they realized this is so sick.
They do so much of this stuff, which is like floating these things, press hits and for attention. And so who knows how it started, if someone pitched it or someone found out about it. But, this pitch of like, it's going to be this American dream and we're going to give citizenship to people. The thing is that flies in the face of the entire way that they've done all of their immigration stuff. This is not about some hopeful American dream, wrap yourself in the flag, Statue of Liberty version of America. We know what this is. This is pitting people against each other, and you have people in this country who are trying to stay here and do the right thing, and you want us to turn on the TV to see your vision, your dystopian vision of what immigration is. And I was glad to quote you in that piece. It's just, and so I think this is where we get back to, and it's not about patting ourselves on the back. This is where we get back to, why are we doing this right now? We could be doing other things. We could be covering other things. I've covered election politics, and I enjoy doing that. But it's like, in this moment, this is the front line for this story, for their overreach, for their unconstitutional things that they're doing. And so to me, it's like, these stories are about humans, as we saw in the story I wrote today. These are real people, U.S. citizens. It's so hard to humanize when you read, 100,000 people were removed, or people who came from the border. When you give these people names and when you talk about their details of their family lives, we find out that just like us, they're our neighbors and people. And turns out even Trump supporters don't want them to be deported.
Yeah. And there just aren't enough Latino criminals and gang members for them to meet these deportation goals. And that is the big lie in all of this. This is where the truth will eventually see the light of day, because the only way they can meet these quotas, meet these numbers that Trump wants to see, is if they carry out a campaign of mass cruelty and heartache across this country, and that it continues over and over again, to the extent that people become so sickened by the level of cruelty that is emanating from this White House, that it has a political impact. It's already starting to have a political impact. His poll numbers on immigration are starting to go upside down. They're starting to nosedive, because people are saying, I'm not this cruel. We are not supposed to be like this. I mean, I have this Statue of Liberty over my shoulder here for a reason. And it's because it's to remind people that's what this country is all about. We came from somewhere else. I mean, we're not all speaking Navajo here. We all came from somewhere else, and it's that journey, and it's all of those journeys that come together that make this country a special place. And Adrian, I really appreciate the reporting that you do over at the Bulwark. Keep doing it, man. Keep plugging away. And anybody who, and don't penalize and punish Adrian for talking to me. Those were my opinions I expressed here. But great to see you, man.
Thanks so much, Jim.
All right, thanks a lot. So anyway, sometimes I get a little fired up, and I've been hearing from people say, oh my goodness, Jim, every once in a while you say a curse word on your show. Let me go find my fainting couch. Oh, I do declare, Jim Acosta, he uttered a naughty word on the Substack. My goodness, I've never heard such language before in the year 2025 here in Washington, D.C. Jim Acosta, my goodness, how can you say that Stephen Miller is a racist asshole? Well, guess what, folks? If the hood fits, wear it. When these guys think it's okay to subject people with Spanish last names and brown skin to this level of cruelty, when you have Trump in the White House, in the Oval Office, basically putting out a fatwa on people like Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs, there's some un-American, unconstitutional shit going on right now in this country. And pardon my salty language. I apologize right now in advance. I laid this apology on the table for all of you. That, there's some stuff that just requires something a little saltier than the King's English. And that is what I'm going to bring to the table from time to time. And, when you're deporting, we can't even say deporting, when you're snatching up and removing U.S. citizen kids and sending them out of the country because their mother is mixed status or overstayed their visa or whatever it is, you're doing nasty, cruel, mean stuff. And you're a bad person. And as Adrian was asking, why do they wear a mask? Why do the ICE agents wear a mask? I'd love to get an answer to that question. I suppose if they're conducting operations where they are going after legitimate gang members, okay, maybe they need to protect themselves and their anonymity and so on. But if you're rounding up moms and little kids and abuelas and dads who are just paying their taxes and working in some restaurant somewhere, doing something like that, you don't need a mask. You need a mask because, frankly, you're probably ashamed of what you're doing. You're feeling shame. Just like so many people inside the Trump administration right now, inside the Trump White House right now, and in the MAGA movement, perhaps Republicans up on Capitol Hill, they feel a level of shame. It's part of the reason why they lash out. It's part of the reason why they lash out at guys like me, lash out at guys at Miles. They feel shame and they don't know what to do with those emotions. And so they lash out. They call people names. They go after journalists. They go after lawyers. They go after whistleblowers. They go after Latinos in this country, people who are just working in a restaurant. They just did a bunch of raids here in Washington the other day. Went through all the popular restaurants in D.C. Those people were at work. They weren't gangbangers. They didn't pick them up at the gang store or the gang restaurant. They picked them up working their jobs at nice restaurants here in Washington. They picked them up at work. What does that tell you about the mass deportations of gang members and criminals that Donald Trump talked about out on the campaign trail? It was all a lie. He was lying. He was lying to you. He was lying to me. He was lying to the American people. And he continues to lie. It is, I believe, the big lie of the moment. The big lie of the moment from Donald Trump and Stephen Miller is that Hispanic people are criminals who don't belong in this country. And that is a lie. There are wonderful, the vast, almost all Latinos in the country, the vast majority, far and away the vast majority of Latinos in this country are law-abiding, peaceful, wonderful, family-loving people who are just trying to make a better life for themselves and their families. That is the truth. That is the reality. That is the truth and the reality that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are trying to deny to you every day. They don't want you to know that truth. They don't want you to see that reality. They don't want you to look behind the curtain and see the President of the United States who can't hack it. He can't hack it as the president, which is why he posts crazy shit all the time on the internet. Think about that. President posting crazy shit all the time on the internet. And so the people inside the White House, people inside the administration, do what Miles did. Come forward. Speak out. If you need to start off with an anonymous op-ed in the New York Times or an anonymous book, start there. But eventually do the right thing and speak out. We need more Miles Taylors in the world. That's what we need in this moment. My thanks to Don, my thanks to Miles, my thanks to Adrian, thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks again for everybody who's been watching the town hall. If you haven't seen the town hall yet, it's still up on Substack. It's also up on YouTube if you want to watch it there. You're sitting on the sofa and it's easier to watch the YouTube on the sofa. You can do that there. You can also listen to it on Apple Podcasts. And once again, thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Still reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta. Have a good evening, everybody. Good night.